Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the University of Waterloo Hult Prize Finals. The University of Waterloo, including the Waterloo, Kitchener, and Cambridge campuses, is situated on the Haldimand Tract, land promised to the Haudenosaunee of the Six Nations of the Grand River, and is a traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. We're grateful to be here this evening. My name is Rupa Reddy, and I'm here as a lecturer at the School of Entrepreneurship and Business, the Conrad School of Entrepreneurship and Business, and Hult's faculty partner. Your Hult campus director, Lily Sui, and I will be helping to MC tonight's events. Before we forget, please make sure to use the hashtags #Hult19 and #ForUsByUs as you take photos throughout tonight's proceedings.
Thank you, Rupa. Hi, everyone. So just as a basic introduction, Hult Prize is the world's largest student-ran social entrepreneurship competition. And the aim of Hult Prize as an organization itself is to really challenge students to come up with innovative solutions for social issues that are extremely pressing to the world right now. So this year, students from over 1,000 different universities across the world are all competing for one challenge: to provide youth who are unemployed with 10,000 meaningful jobs. So teams that win at the regionals will become one of 50 to be at an 8-week summer accelerator in London, England. From there, they'll finally be able to compete for $1 million at the United Nations headquarters next August. Last year, 4 teams from the University of Waterloo have competed in the regionals, and this year we anticipate no less. So here at the University of Waterloo, we had over 100 students who have been working to better understand the issue of youth unemployment. And to support all Hult participants, we've had our kickoff, a networking session, a speed mentorship night, as well as a pitch practice round for the finalist teams. And for the second time, we're also proud to announce that Hult was able to be integrated as a part of our social entrepreneurship courses here on campus, which, to our knowledge, hasn't happened anywhere else in the world, and that's a huge accomplishment. So this year, from the 30 teams who have registered at our quarter video pitch finals, 26 teams were then selected to pitch at our semis last week. And tonight, 8 teams that's been selected as our top 8 finalists will then be presenting their ideas in front of our live audience, as well as our awesome judges. I know that personally, I can't wait to listen to all their awesome ideas, and I hope that you guys are too. So for myself and for many others who are affiliated with Hult Prize, we believe that this isn't just a competition. It's a movement where students can come together and really make a positive impact to change the way that the world functions and really help those who are in need the most. At the University of Waterloo, I know that we're known to be innovative and entrepreneurial, but above all else, I know that we all want to make a difference.
Thanks, Lily. As Lily has described, it's been an exciting and full few months for many UWaterloo students, faculty members, and mentors, colleagues across faculties and departments, from the Center for Peace Advancement, to Greenhouse, to SEED, to Environment and Business, and of course here at the Conrad School in the Faculty of Engineering, and mentors from across our external community have been so open to helping our teams out and supporting our events. All of you, and most importantly, our diverse and bright student teams, have demonstrated the power of collaborative, interdisciplinary learning, the type of learning that we know is at the heart of solving problems that matter. Regardless of whether you're pitching tonight or not, you should all be proud of your hard work and learning. These are skills that you will continue to build and that will continue to serve you, your careers, and your local and global communities. There are also, on a practical note, other ways to apply to regionals apart from our campus round that we will fill you in on in the coming days and weeks. So either way, tonight is an evening of celebration for all of our teams. Tonight, before we get started with our judge intros, I'd like to acknowledge and appreciate the support of the Trevor Eaton Chair, which has provided sponsorship of all of our Hult events. Without that sponsorship, none of our events would have been possible, so we're very grateful for that support. In addition, for our first place team, the Trevor Eaton Chair is also generously sponsoring travel and accommodation to the regionals of their choice. That's across 15 cities around the world, which is fantastic, and also something I know that first place team will be very grateful for. And we'd also like to appreciate and acknowledge the support of ECL, Electrical Contacts Limited, for their generous contribution of cash prizes. This is the second year of that generous support to be awarded to the top 3 teams for research and development in the amounts of $3,000 for the first place team tonight, $2,500 for each of the second and third place teams. Peter Allen from ECL, we're so happy he's here tonight with us. Do you mind just standing for a second, Peter, so we can acknowledge your support? Peter will be congratulating our winning teams later tonight, so we will definitely see him again later. Now, without further ado, I'll hand over the mic to one of our event coordinators this year with a Hult Prize, Jillian, who will be introducing our judges.
We are grateful this year to have a range of judges with diverse experiences to help determine tonight's top 3 teams. From leading and growing community organizations focused on marginalized youth, to changing mindsets about the future of work, to youth-focused projects in international contexts. Let's begin our first judge. Joe Marcini, along with his partner Stephanie, established a working center in the spring of 1982. During these 36 years, it has become a creative and hospitable community that fosters inclusive and affordable access to tools projects rooted in downtown Kitchener. Today, the Working Center is comprised of over 40 different projects around food, market gardening, recycling, bikes, healthcare, housing, outreach, and day labor projects operating out of 14 buildings and multiplex houses of over 500 volunteers. In July 2016, Joe and Stephanie were made members of the Order of Canada for their commitment to the homeless and marginalized of the Kitchener-Waterloo region. Thank you, Joe, for being here tonight. Next, we have Ilona Dougherty. Ilona is a co-creator and managing director for the Youth and Innovation Project at the University of Waterloo. She's an award-winning social innovator and a regular commenter in the Canadian media who helps business, civil society, and government understand how to tap into the unique abilities of young people. She has extensive leadership and governance experience, having co-founded several organizations, including Apathy is Boring, a Canadian nonpartisan and social enterprise that educates youth and democracy and encourages them to vote. She was named an Ashoka Fellow in 2009, was a recipient of the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal in 2012, and one of the top 100 most powerful women in Canada by the Women's Executive Network in 2015. Thank you, Ilona, for being here tonight. Finally, Catherine Walker is a project manager at Mennonite Economic Development Associates in the Eastern, Southern, and Central Africa Department. Catherine has over 6 years of experience working in the international development field, developing and implementing projects focused on youth education and entrepreneurship, microfinance, private sector development, and market systems development. She has worked in several countries, including Kenya, Nicaragua, Colombia, and Spain. In her current role, she manages Meta's agricultural transformation through stronger vocational training project in Ethiopia, led by Dalhousie University and funded by Global Affairs Canada. The overall goal of the project is to increase graduates from agricultural, technical, and vocational education and training, institutions with the skills and knowledge required by the job market for the commercial sector in Ethiopia. To achieve this goal, Meta supports the integration of business and entrepreneurship into college curriculum, as well as manages a cooperative placement program for college students and a matching grant program to help students launch their own agricultural business after graduation. Thank you, Catherine, for being here tonight.
Okay, again, thank you to all of our judges. And now it really is the moment we've all been waiting for to kick off tonight's pitches. So as you can see behind me, the first 4 teams to pitch tonight will be in this order: Team Collabo, Team Meerkat, Team Pulse Home, and Team Nigeria Connected. So just before we start, just a quick sort of logistical note of how this will run. Each team will have 5 minutes to pitch. At the 4-minute mark of your presentations, so with 1 minute left, Lily will hold up that sign that says 1 minute, which you can choose to look at or not, whichever works for your team, I don't know. But we will, basically that's our friendly reminder that you will be cut off at 5 minutes. I'll just come up and mention that you're done. And then, sorry, I was trying to sound formal. Clearly this isn't working too well. Okay, anyhow, then we'll transition into the Q&A for 4 minutes per team, where judges will have a chance to ask you questions. And after that, you will return to your seats. Does that sound good for our teams that are pitching? Okay, fantastic. So without further ado, so as teams come up, again, please just take the mics from me here and you'll have a clicker as well. So let's welcome our first team to pitch tonight. Some extra applause for our first team, Team Collabo.
Ready. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chidima Ikebujo, and I'm joined here today by Matthew, Tamim, and Jackson, and together we are Collabo. Our mission at Collabo is to train young semi-skilled workers for an automated future.
Thank you. This is Orpa. She's a young mother from Bangladesh. And she grew up poor, so she had very few opportunities to formalize education. Because of this, she has limited opportunities to provide financial support for her family. But she's not alone. She is one of over 3.2 million young women who are currently employed within the textile industry. And what this consists of is manual repetitive tasks for a very small amount of pay. Take-home pay is around $6,500, or taka, I should say, the native currency, which equates to $67 a month American. Implication: we're in the midst of the 4th industrial revolution, which is highlighted by automation. And because the textile industry is so heavily involved, it is a ripe candidate to be displaced and its workers. This means that the people who rely on the jobs the most, such as Orpa, are also the most susceptible to losing those jobs. Ultimately, they are displaced because they don't have the educational requirements to get further employment once they lose those jobs. And to make matters worse, mass media is painting an extremely bleak picture of what the future of the factory life will look like for textile workers. And this means that the solution is not simply reintegrating these displaced workers back into the textile industry. We need to find something new and novel, and we believe we found that. What you might not know about Bangladesh is that there are also emerging industries not involved within the textile space. Leather goods, plastics, and electronics, just to name a few. We've gone out and we've spoken with factory workers and hiring managers, and they've all come back with one critical piece of feedback. They demand skilled labor, and Collabo is a team to do that.
Thank you. Collabo reskills these textile displaced workers using their smartphones. We build skill-specific videos in partnership with employers. At the end of the courses, they get a QR code by which they can go to employers and show that they're better qualified than other job-seeking candidates. Workers like Orpa get new skills that will enable her to get jobs in emerging industries. This is all possible because the mobile phone is the most important asset to a textile worker. As you can see from this chart, a textile worker rather own a mobile phone than a fan. And to put it into context, Bangladesh is the country where summers are hotter than 33 degrees Celsius. The advantages are twofold of using the Collabo platform. For beneficiaries like Orpa, there is direct, meaningful employment. The fact that she is better trained means that she's harder to replace in her job. And she can choose from variety of skills from the Collabo platform. That means that she has higher job opportunities. For employers, the cost of hiring goes down. And since the employees are better trained, they are likely to stay in the job longer. Hence, the employers benefit from higher retention rate. Also, these employers can be confident that the workers that come through Collabo meet their exact job skills specification.
So what are our next steps? We will begin to conduct secondary research on both the textile and non-textile industries. Next, we would conduct interviews with the leaders of emerging industries in the Bangladesh. And then by June, we would begin design and development of the interface and the curriculum. We then move to the UI viability testing in the aim to pilot the application with employer groups and select beneficiaries. This is our team. Tamim, who is from Bangladesh, has expertise in EdTech focusing on youth. Matthew has 2 years of business development experience. Chidima is a civil engineer with IT experience, and I myself have been a creative director for over 2.5 years. And this is the team that will bring Collabo to life.
And here's what we ask of you. Help us put Collabo in the hands of millions of Bangladeshi workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Collabo. Okay, now it's time for Q&A. So who would like to begin? Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I think the core of your idea is whether the people can be higher trained using a phone and that they would actually get jobs. So the question is, are there those kinds of jobs that you can be trained on such a phone application available? And who, is it really creating new jobs, or is it just kind of pushing the jobs around?
Okay, that's a very good question. About the transferability, these garments workers already have certain skills that we will enhance through the platform. So shifting from a textile job to going into leather has similarities, but we will top it off with the videos. And in terms of creating jobs, the economy itself creates new jobs as technology changes. So through automation, there are going to be shifts in jobs, and then there's globalization too. So these jobs are coming into Bangladesh, and through our interviews, we have learned that these labor are not skilled enough to take these jobs. And jobs, even though they are there, they're not being taken. So in that way, we could say that yes, jobs are being created through the platform.
Ilona?
So I just have revenue model. Could you elaborate a little bit on what that would look like?
Yes. If you can switch. So the revenue, we plan on earning the revenues from the employers. So we would take an upfront cost to help us create the videos, the content for them. And then we also want to take a headhunter fee because of all the employees that will get through us.
And I just have a question just related to gender, because my understanding is so women are going to be the main target of your work. So I'm curious, with looking at leather, plastics, and electronics, if you did any research or what you found in your research around the current gender dynamics in those industries. Are there a lot of women currently involved in there? Do you anticipate any gender-based barriers of moving into those sectors?
For leather, we have spoken to 2 leather factory owners. The gender does not matter for certain skills such as stitching the shoe or stitching the leather or ironing the leather out. And the textile industry mostly has female workers. So that way, we're trying to shift them from a dyeing industry into the new jobs. But having said that, there are definitely certain things which are limited, or men would be preferred for jobs over women, such as heavy lifting in factories and all those. So yes.
We have time for one more question, if anybody has a follow-up, or Joe.
Wondering if you thought about an intermediary with the technology. So someone can, read something on a phone or learn, but, will they really learn unless they're doing it very practically? So are you thinking of a kind of intermediary kind of training piece that would make your application that much stronger?
That's a very good point. Currently, these trainings do not exist in Bangladesh, and what would happen is they would just take a worker, let them work, and then they feel whether they're good enough or not, and then they let them go. But having that video really gives them that extra advantage. Currently, we haven't thought of making a physical space where we can give a training. We're focusing on the video aspects of it right now.
Great. Thank you very much, judges, for your questions, and team for your answers. Okay, the next team to pitch will be Team Meerkat. One second, we'll just make sure. Judges, are you ready? Yeah, perfect, go ahead.
We're Meerkat, and we're intelligently matching volunteers with charities. So who are we? Well, we're a well-rounded team of fourth-year system design engineers with technical design and business experience, and we're passionate about social impact problems. We have past industry experience working at companies like Facebook, Microsoft, BCG, and Deloitte. So what are we doing? Well, we know that charities struggle to find volunteers with the skills required to complete their tasks. And on the other hand, we know that volunteers, especially youth, struggle to find the volunteer opportunities that will allow them to gain or improve upon the skills that they need to get their first jobs. So we're intelligently matching these two parties in order to improve the volunteer experience.
So we've been investigating this space over the past few months and have identified key issues through research and conversations with stakeholders. So consider this: 72% of educators feel that their youth are ready for the workforce. Meanwhile, 39% of employers do not feel that youth are ready to enter the workforce for entry-level positions. Additionally, 45% of post-secondary students do not feel that they're adequately prepared for the workforce. Clearly, there is a disconnect here between educators, employers, and youth. Education is failing to provide the employable skills that youth need and currently lags behind the labor market requirements. So where can youth actually gain these skills? Well, charities need volunteers to drive impact. Charities run on volunteer manpower. We've also been talking to charity leaders, we've also learned that oftentimes charities lack formal HR personnel and processes, and they ultimately have difficulty finding the right volunteers. So there lies room for fostering skills development while also building out charity capacity.
So in order to address these issues, we'll be creating a platform that intelligently matches charities and volunteers together, focusing on personalized recommendations, comprehensive filtering, and intelligent content creation. So what makes us different? Current platforms only allow a very basic, simple search for volunteer opportunities. Our platform will allow users to actually discover opportunities that align naturally with their skills, passions, and goals. Additionally, factors such as virtual location opportunities or transportation methods are not usually included and available. Therefore, our platform will prioritize volunteer mobility and allow users to actually discover virtual and local opportunities. Lastly, our platform will be able to collect a large amount of data in real time, which will be able to help us to improve our matching and recommendation algorithms. While this data is derived from charities and volunteers, it is still a very valuable data in the private sector, and it will be used to further fund our initiatives.
So our plan is to employ a three-pillar approach to generating revenue. The first of which is natural partnerships. We hope to partner with governments, volunteer agencies, as well as school systems to encourage volunteering through a variety of ways. We understand, however, that government grants are not a reliable or scalable source of revenue, so we will focus on other pillars. The first of which is the freemium model. Our goal is to have the largest amount of impact and reach through our platform. So our goal is to allow volunteers and charities to both use our platform for free. However, charities that are looking for additional guidance or excess platform usage will be able to pay for a premium account. Finally, the value of data. This will be our largest revenue generator through our platform. Data will be collected on volunteer behavior, hiring trends, and skills development. This data will then be used to understand in real time how emerging job trends are changing, how we can find more development opportunities, as well as facilitate in the employment in this rapidly changing economy. Big picture data in this area can be sold to governments, school systems, and employers looking to hire. And by spreading this information to these three avenues, we're able to minimize the disconnect between skills developed in the workforce, skills developed at school and skills required in the workforce. We hope to also provide insights into how the skills gaps in hiring pools currently exist. McKinsey recently completed a study which found that 70% of employers internationally would be willing to pay 22% more for a qualified hiring pool. We're in a position where we're able to provide organizations with data on who to hire as the best possible candidate, while also providing them access to a pool of very qualified talent. So we feel that through these three pillars, we're able to create a sustainable and scalable model for Meerkat.
We've worked to establish the relationships and understanding required to actually tackle this problem, and we're working on a prototype. We're going to originally run a local pilot, and then afterward we'll roll it out across Canada. Once we've built a strong community and data set, then we'll leverage the data to start getting revenue, and we'll also roll out internationally. Meerkat is positioning the youth of today to get the jobs of tomorrow, solving the problem of youth unemployment. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Meerkat. Okay, we'll start the Q&A now, starting with Ilona.
Great. So I just have a question about organizational capacity of the nonprofits and charities that you would be working with. So have you thought about, like, this is extra work for them to populate, kind of put that information into the platform? Have you thought about how you would encourage them to do that, or what would be the incentives for them?
That's an excellent question. A lot of these organizations are already posting all of their job opportunities and things like that all over the internet, and so they're doing a lot of work there. And we obviously don't want to add to their workload. So what we've actually started building into our prototype is a lot of intelligent autofilling. So we've already obtained data from the Canada Revenue Agency, where all charities have to file listings about their organizations. We're also working on obtaining that data automatically from job posting somewhere else. So if you say, oh, I already wrote my job posting on XYZ volunteer website, we can automatically pull in that information into our platform, help you improve the posting, and then get it posted. So it's very minimal work for the charity to actually add it to our platform, but the posting that's on our platform will actually be better because of the insights we provide after we pull it in.
So I just had a question about the alignment between the types of volunteer opportunities that are being offered and the skills that youth need in order to get jobs. So what your thinking was on that, and if you're going to be designing this platform in a way that ensures that there's alignment between both the skill needs of charities, but also the needs of the skills that youth need to build in order to get jobs.
So by talking to a variety of different charities, we found there's so many different opportunities at these organizations that are simply not being filled because they don't have the manpower to fill them. So our hope is that through this platform and getting a lot of information and data on both what the charities need and what the volunteers are passionate about or hope to develop, we'll be able to align these two features. And I think a lot of thought definitely needs to go into how we will optimize for both parties and not have a bias to one or the other. But we definitely feel that through our conversations, we found there's enough opportunities for skill development for these volunteers through these organizations.
And I think further to that point, one thing that we'll be able to do with the insights through continued use of the platform is being able to understand sort of the progression. So how does someone actually move from one volunteer position to another and then maybe to employment, as well as how can different volunteers have, or different organizations have success with certain skills. So I think using that data to actually inform that process is really important.
I've noticed a fair number of organization or new kind of ideas trying to set the over at the Lang building there, and they're a lot of them are focusing on the charities, and they sometimes don't look at the rest, say like volunteers coming into the charities. But I've noticed that there's a lot of problems kind of getting uptake from the charities, because we're doing other things, or this is going to cost us money and things like that. So I like your idea that you're trying to get both sides, but it won't be easy to get the attention of the charities.
Yeah, so we actually have already conducted research with over a dozen charities. I definitely agree that is going to be a very big problem for us. One of the things that we're trying to do is to minimize the amount of work that's required for the charity, and we're also making it free for the charities to use the platform. So right away, there's no additional cost to the charity to use it, and ideally, there's almost no setup time required for the charity to go create their account and then start creating the postings on the platform. So there definitely will be some work that we need to do there. One of the other things we noticed from our discussions with the charities is that usually when a couple charities will adopt some kind of technology, the word spreads to the other charities and they share those insights. And so one of the things that we'll be looking to do once we're building up the platform originally is working with a lot of these charities that we've had initial conversations with to get them seeded into our platform.
Sorry to cut you off. That's all the time we have for Q&A. We let it run a bit over, but thank you for your questions and answers. Great. Next up, we have Pulse Home.
We're Pulse Home, a housing technology for Indigenous communities that employs youth. 1.7 million Canadians identify as Indigenous. Half of those living on reserves are under 25. Indigenous populations are the youngest and fastest growing parts of Canadian society, growing at 4 times the national average. Lack of employment opportunities, along with living conditions, are preventing youth from reaching their full potential. In fact, 1 in 5 Indigenous Canadians live in houses that are overcrowded or in need of major repairs. Indigenous communities have identified a strong correlation between growth, housing, and employment. Poor housing and unemployment are correlated. Basic needs of youth are not met, youth feel disempowered, and they're unable to grow. And what little housing is available is saved for large families, meaning youth wanting to move out are unable to do so and unfortunately are forced out of their communities. So we've partnered with 3 communities in Atlantic Canada. We visited all 3 communities and held the official kickoff meeting in Halifax in November with our partners, Canadian Mortgage Housing Corporation and Habitat for Humanity. Indigenous youth, the booming youth population can help build homes in communities where they're so desperately needed. And it's shown through research that for every 100 new homes, 200 jobs can be created. So after half a year of research and engagement, we give you Pulse Home, a panelized construction technology that will enable employment of unskilled youth.
We worked with our partner communities to identify the main obstacles to healthy housing, and together we created a path to success with adaptability, durability, affordability, and empowerment as our main project goals. Adaptability means the ability to expand a single-bedroom home to a multi-bedroom home. This provides affordable housing for youth before and after they start their own families. This was identified as an urgent need by our partner communities whose youth feel that they must leave to be able to grow. We're currently prototyping a housing solution that will use our patented wall panels and expandable solutions for the roof and foundations. Unlike existing technologies, our panels will include the plumbing and electrical systems so that unskilled youth can be employed through building houses. Each Pulse home will cost significantly less than the current housing model, enabling more housing and more employment. So Pulse Home creates employment through production and construction. We employ youth in the production of Pulse panels and the construction of Pulse homes, and we enable employment by addressing housing needs and empowering youth. The current financial model in Indigenous reserves includes the Government of Canada as the main source of funding for housing. This funding is given to external contractors and then it leaves the community. In the Pulse Home model, employment and funding will be retained within the community.
Pulse Home will profit solely through the sales of building materials and houses. We will reinvest this profit through building construction and maintenance training for community members. This will allow us to create a greater impact through education, training, and employment of youth. This impact will allow Pulse Home to create ethical and sustainable growth. Firstly, the local youth will be hired by the band council themselves, which will foster an atmosphere of respect and dignity. Secondly, hiring community members will allow the cash flow to remain within the community, which will allow for asset retention. And lastly, building initially smaller homes while not limiting the growth of these future homes will allow for more development and more houses built. 31,000 jobs can be created through construction. 12,400 homes can be created each year. 1,000 jobs can be created through production. So in total, 32,000 jobs can be created for the next 20 years, with 20,000 of those jobs targeted for Indigenous youth. And this market can be expanded to Indigenous communities in countries such as the United States and Australia. We're able to do this because we're a team of 3 passionate engineering students motivated to make an impact. We have interdisciplinary skills in building science, product management, and sustainable design. Our partners include the University of Waterloo, Habitat for Humanity Canada, the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, and 3 Indigenous communities. So right now, we're developing our technical prototype, and we'll be piloting a test home in 2020 in one of our partner communities in Atlantic Canada. So Pulse Home is more than just a housing solution. For us, it's our vision for the future.
Sorry, that's all the time we have. You're about 20 seconds over. Thank you. Thank you for your pitch. Thank you. Okay, now we can start Q&A with Catherine.
For sure. So I really like with this concept that you're looking at both underlying causes of unemployment and then also looking at employment generation. I'm curious if you've thought about, for those youth that aren't interested in employment in this particular industry, about how you might create linkages to other employment opportunities, because you're dealing also with that underlying issue of lack of access to housing. So I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
So by providing some form of employment or training, part of our model includes that going in and training people to be able to use these panels. We think that even if they're not interested in going into the building industry in the long run, by providing them this opportunity to be employed, that can actually catalyze them into further employment. So the issue in a lot of Indigenous communities right now is that many people are caught in this cycle of unemployment. Because they're unemployed, they can't become employed. And you have this feeling of hopelessness and this inability to move on. So our goal is to break that cycle.
To add on to what Paula said, as Aman mentioned earlier, for every 100 homes, there's 200 jobs created, and those aren't directly related to the construction aspect of the home. So we can branch off in other areas such as like interior design, architecture, or even the design of actual housing themselves. So.
In terms of the governance and leadership of the company that you're creating, have you thought about how you can support the communities and the young people in feeling a sense of ownership, being engaged in governance of your organization? So I hear that the money is staying in communities, but I'm just wondering about kind of a next step.
I think I'll just explain the whole money staying within the community first a bit more. So currently, the Government of Canada gives funding to the band, and then the band hires external contractors to employ people to build houses. So what we're hoping to do with keeping the money within the community is employing local youth who don't have skills to build their own homes. So the whole youth empowerment concept is also coming from the fact that currently homes, prefabricated homes, are just delivered to these communities, and they don't take ownership over them. They don't pay rent for it. So what we're hoping to do is, by using these panels, which don't require any skilled trades, people, youth, and general members of the community will be building these homes themselves and hopefully gain a stronger sense of like empowerment.
Adding on to what Aman said, in terms of the actual leadership and decisions made, we've already partnered with these 3 communities and are engaging with more and with other people. And it's integral to us that this engagement and empowerment is part of the process, and they're part of the design of these panels. They get to make the choices, and they're here from the very start of this project.
Joe, go ahead.
The first thing is I'm really impressed by the way you connected with those research organizations. So I would like you to just talk about how you were able to. The second thing is the connection between, there's an Aboriginal project in Vancouver that's taking shipping containers and turning that into a youth project. So how are you matching the costs of that compared to your panels? Because panels people have talked about them, but I haven't seen them actually in action.
So to focus on the first part of your question, I'm also the senior design lead of an initiative on campus called Warrior Home, which is a sustainable building design team. And through them, I connected with Jay Thakar, which is the leader of the Indigenous Projects Coordinator of Habitat for Humanity. And in talking to her, I realized that I want to work with her for my capstone design project. And and so Paula and Aman also felt really strongly that we wanted to work with her. So it all started with Habitat for Humanity first, and then we got into contact with the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation and the 3 Indigenous communities after that. And that's basically how the partnership was formed. The second part of your question, shipping containers. We did consider them for a really long time, but a really big focus of our design is actually on the maintainability. So in providing shipping containers, we thought it was just basically the same model that's already being provided to these Indigenous communities in basically shipping a final solution and not allowing them being able to maintain or make changes to their home.
Sorry, that's all the time we have for Q&A.
We didn't use shipping containers.
We can talk later.
Well played, I like that. Okay, thank you. Thanks. Now our final team to pitch before the break will be Nigeria Connected.
Hi everybody, we are Nigeria Connected, and we are Nigeria's first youth-centered corporation focusing on smallholder farmers. Today, 3 out of 4 farmers is earning less than the UN poverty line in Nigeria, which means that 40,000 youth farmers are earning less than $1 a day. Furthermore, men are 9 more times likely to own a farm than women, although women are doing 70% of the agricultural labor. A survey was held in Nigeria to ask why they think they earn this amount of money, and 85% of the people blamed the lack of access to loans, farming inputs like seeds and fertilizers, and the lack of access to crop storage.
Our solution is to create an agriculture cooperative for young Nigerians, giving them access to loans, added value for their crops through post-harvest processing, as well as storage. We want to empower young Nigerian men and women to move from subsistence farming and vulnerable employment into earning consistent profits from their land, giving them secure self-employment. We want to connect about half men, half women in this cooperative, allowing women to have a fair representation in the next generation of agriculture. We will be installing storage solutions for mostly cassava and rice at the beginning, reducing amounts of crop spoilage, as well as allowing farmers to immediately rather than immediately selling their crops and receiving the lowest market prices, they can store the crops and wait out for better prices. We'll also allow the farmers to bulk their produce together and reach larger distributors for better prices. In addition to storage, we'll be offering financial support so young farmers can get higher quality seeds rather than recycling seeds from the previous year, as well as installing irrigation, giving them consistent yields and letting them grow twice as much in the off-season. All of these inputs will be delivered with on-farm training to ensure the most effective use of these materials.
The third aspect of our cooperative is to invest in post-harvest processing. This will allow the farmers to take control of processing their crops themselves, which not only allows them to increase the shelf life of the crops that they produce, but it also increases the value of those crops significantly. Next year, we're going to be initiating a pilot. This will involve 50 young farmers in Nigeria and will cost about $50,000. The $50,000 is going to go towards those 3 pillars of our cooperative, enabling young farmers to have access to financial loans, to build storage facilities for their crops, and to invest in mills and dryers for those post-harvest processing units. Currently, to make the business sustainable, we'll be taking 10% of the revenue of all the farmers involved in our cooperative and investing that back into the business. We know that with that amount of money, we can create an entirely sustainable business while not taking too much money away from the farmers who need it. We've currently been working with several potential partners in Nigeria who've already worked with similar demographics of people and have come across problems that we know we can solve ahead of time by talking and learning from them.
We aim to double the productivity, income, and inputs of farmers. So we aim to double the productivity, the inputs, and storage facilities of farmers through fair and equal access to loans and input facilities. Also, we aim to increase farmers' inputs and as well as promote women empowerment, equal rights to financial services, and access to loan. We are a team with extensive experiences and a passion for empowering young youths. We are confident that our solution would help promote women empowerment anywhere. And we are confident that our solution help promote women empowerment anywhere, and we're the team that would make this change. Okay. We're currently doing a lot of research on the constraints to youth farming, and we plan to establish partnerships within Nigeria, and also we plan that Hult grants us the opportunity to reach the regional finals in Abuja, where we can actually implement our goals and work hand in hand with the youth farmers and as well as the local government. We are Nigeria connected, and we will empower 10,000 youths to move from vulnerable employment to secure employment. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigeria Connected. Who would like to start the Q&A? Catherine?
Yeah, so I'll
Catherine?
start.
Yeah.
So just a couple questions for you. So one question that I have is just around attracting youth to agriculture, because this is one issue. So the project that I work on in Ethiopia, we're working with youth in agriculture, and just motivating youth to see agriculture as a profitable, viable career option can be quite challenging. So I'm curious to hear a bit more about your recruitment strategy and how you're going to engage with youth in order to get them to buy into this vision. The other question I had was a little bit more of a technical question, just around, you mentioned cassava and rice as 2 areas that you were going to focus on initially. So I was curious to hear a little more about why you chose those specific commodities, and just what research you've done on the market demand side to ensure that if you're producing those products, that there's sufficient market demand to be able to sell those products.
Okay, so I can answer the commodity part first. So rice and cassava are 2 of the main crops grown in Nigeria, and they both face really high amounts of spoilage after harvest, as well as they both have a lot of added value that can be done to them. In terms of rice, Nigeria currently imports more rice than any other country in the world, so there's a huge market for selling rice. As well as cassava, the Nigerian government is really pushing cassava growth because it's It's a very special crop in terms of like nutrients compared to other major staple crops that they're growing. Can you repeat the first part of your question? Sorry.
For sure. Sorry, there were two kind of different questions. So sorry, the first question?
Yes.
So my first question was around kind of motivating youth to be engaged in agriculture and to buy into this model and participating in this project.
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we looked at a bunch of research, and one of them said that 75% of youth don't want to go into agriculture because it's not like a respected employment area. So we want to work with the Youth Initiative for Sustainable Agriculture, which is an initiative run by Nigeria right now, the government, which helps train youth in schools. We want to help in farm schools. So we want to help reach out to those youth who have access to land and start with them for our pilot. So youth that are already interested, and we hope we can increase the attractability or the attractiveness of agriculture through empowering those youth.
Thank you. Ilona or Joe?
I'm wondering the kind of larger constraints that stop cooperative development, or maybe another way of saying it is, are there functioning co-ops in Nigeria that demonstrate your idea is viable? So, co-ops need a bit of help to get going. There's reasons why people don't cooperate. How are you going to make that happen? And is it a problem?
Okay, so there is currently a cooperative in northern Nigeria. It focuses on a whole range of farmers and a whole range of crops. And they currently have 20,000 farmers in their cooperative with 70,000 applicants. So there's a huge demand for cooperatives in the region, as well as they've shown to have a very good model. We're following very closely to their model. We kind of realized after we kind of developed ours that we're following very closely to their model in terms of structure and attracting people to stay in the cooperative and have a functioning cooperative.
Okay, we have time for one more question if the judges have another question, or are we good? We're good. Okay, thank you very much, Nigeria Connected. All right, so for the second half, the teams will pitch in this order: Better Bale for America, Craft Collective, Grid It, and finally Hatch. So please join me in welcoming our first team in the second half, Better Bale for America.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Devin, and my colleagues are Mitchell, Raresh, and David. We are Better Bale for America, and we're excited to tell you about our innovative new social venture focused on fixing the broken bail system in the United States. In the US, criminal records are as common as bachelor's degrees. Not only is this statistic shocking, but there's plenty of evidence to suggest that having a criminal record is just as detrimental to your career as a college degree is beneficial. So why do so many people have a criminal record? Most people think that when you're arrested, you're presumed innocent until a trial is held where a judge and jury reach a verdict, then potentially sentencing you with a criminal record. But in reality, only 3% of cases actually reach trial.
Great, so let's look at what happens in the other 97% of cases. At first, an arrest is made, at which point there's a pretrial hearing and a bail is set. Unfortunately for 80% of America, they cannot afford that bail option. If you fit into that 80%, you now have three terrible options. The first option is to stay in jail for months, where you'll jeopardize your current employment. Your second option is to go see a bail bondsman, but you'll get faced with a predatory interest rate and you'll jeopardize your financial stability for later. Your final option is to accept a plea deal, where you'll leave jail today, but you'll leave a stain on your criminal record forever. Looking at these options, it's unsurprising that 90% of people take that plea deal, 68% of which are our youth. When deciding whether or not to take a plea deal, it means deciding between sitting months in jail and risking your current job versus accepting the plea deal, gaining a criminal record, and risking a future one. This is not a decision America should be forcing its youth to make. With that said, we know we can do better. And we can do it in the following regards. We can target employed youth, we can target youth with no criminal record, and we can leverage the community. So how does it work?
So let's look at an example. Take Jimmy here. Jimmy's been arrested and his bail set to $10,000. Jimmy can't possibly afford this, but if he doesn't pay, he'll be stuck in jail and he could lose his job. So Jimmy or a close confidant sign him up for our platform. They give us some information such as his age, the current charges, his employment status. We then run some data through a risk assessment and offer Jimmy a fair deal. In this case, instead of having to provide the $10,000 bail, he only has to come up with $1,000, and we cover the remaining $1,000. A bail page is created, which he can distribute amongst friends and family members, a community, so that they can also help pitch in and support him. So not knowing Jimmy personally, we take pledges from this community as votes of confidence in his ability to show up to court. These pledges can come in the form of money, effectively crowdsourcing the bail, or if they can't afford to contribute, a digital signature, vouching for his ability to show up to court. Now, we believe that these are valuable signals that strongly correlate to his actual appearance in court. So as Jimmy gets more and more backers, the goal amount decreases. As you'll recall, he initially had to come up with $1,000, but with 15 backers, this amount's been reduced to $800, and then with 20 backers, even lower to $600. At this point, the goal is reached. We release funds to the courts, and most importantly, Jimmy is able to resume his life. He can return to work. He doesn't have to lose his job. In the months leading up to the trial, we proactively remind Jimmy to appear for his court date, because studies show that doing this can increase appearance rates by up to 32%. Finally, when he appears in court on the date specified, the funds are returned to his backers.
Now, there's some existing players in this market, but none which engage the community in the way that we do. Bail bondsmen focus only on profit, and they focus only on profit, and they actually prey on low-income communities. Charities, on the other hand, are not scalable in the way that we are. Now, the key is profitability, and we intend to use data science and risk modeling to select just the right cases. We have two hypotheses, which are one, that youth with no criminal record don't want that initial stain and are therefore unlikely to miss court, and two, that those community signals correlate strongly with him actually appearing in court. Now, our company values are rooted in pragmatism and in data-driven decision-making, and we promise never to make false claims. In the last round, we promised that if advanced, we would reach out to bail charities, we would have real conversations with people crowdfunding bail, and we would complete the necessary research to initially draft our business plan. We did all three of these things. By advancing us to the next round, you give us the credibility to partner with these charities to launch a closed beta test and collect the data to validate our hypotheses. We are Better Bail for America. Our central mission is to help youth keep their jobs. And with our platform, we also believe that these youth can be the driving force of criminal justice reform in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Better Bail for America. We'll open our Q&A with a question from Ilona.
Sure. So just this, I'm assuming, would require a fair amount of money because you guys would need to pay the bail or a lot of bail. So could you talk a little bit more about the revenue model, and where you'd be getting that money?
For sure. So we've done a lot of number crunching to model our revenue stream. We're going to make money in two ways. One, by taking a service fee from the accused as soon as the goal is reached and they're ready to be released from court. And we're also going to make money by collecting interest on our endowment fund, to which the pledges feed into. And so here you see our 10-year outlook, starting with a $1 million investment, which was the prize of this challenge. We're looking at a $3 million fund growing to $3 million over the 10-year period, and in just 9 years, we'll have reached the 10,000 youth. And I'll add that these projections are based on very conservative parameters that you see on the left.
Thank you. Next, we have a question from Joe.
You said you reached out to those bail charities that are doing this kind of work, so you didn't say what the response was, and was it positive, obviously?
Sure, yeah, I can respond to that. So yeah, we've reached out to a couple of charities, the Bail Project, the Bronx Freedom Fund, and we sort of started an email conversation with them. The community leader who had the most success with us is actually a rabbi in the Prospect Park part of Brooklyn, and he sets up crowdfunding pages for 5 to 6 youth in his community every year. They get stuck in jail, and he basically asks the Jewish community to help crowdfund their bail. And so we think he's going to be a really valuable partner with us. He's actually the boots on the ground.
He's actually invited us to go on his radio show, so we may do that at some point. It was a really random offer, but it could be useful to get the word out there. So already the responses are really positive. We also reached out to people actually crowdfunding their bail, and they've been really receptive because it's a tricky situation, and so, yeah.
Thank you. Catherine?
I'm curious to hear a little bit more about the pledges of support and that community support. Would you place any restrictions around who would be able to provide that support? Are you concerned about people just kind of mass posting this on social media and getting people that don't necessarily know them and can't necessarily vouch for whether they would reliably turn up in court?
Yeah. So something that's actually really important in our platform is the sense of validation of the people that are giving their pledges. So we actually require ID upon signing up, or at least some legitimate way of confirming who you are. And now all of a sudden your pledge is tied into who you are. And so if you're somebody who tries to go online and game the system, and maybe you're funding bail non-monetarily for a lot of people, so let's say we get bitten in a couple cases and they don't show up to their court case. Now all of a sudden your credibility is gone as far as our platform is confirmed. So it's taken into account in our risk model who is actually signing up, and we know that for each account it corresponds to one person because we verify their identity. So
we have time for one more question.
Yeah, my question is about lived experience. I'm not going to ask if any of you had this lived experience, but I think it's really important that we make sure that young people who have this lived experience have a chance to be a part again of decision making or kind of crafting this idea. So how do you have a plan about engagement of young people who've been through this in kind of how you're developing the project?
Feel free to jump in.
We don't have specific thoughts on that, but that's a really good point. We'd definitely be open to engaging those who have fell victim to the system inside our business to help them feed back into the problem or feed back into the solution.
Another thing I wanted to mention here is that we've been exploring other ways that we could actually support the people going through our process. So that corresponds to before the court date, maybe setting them up with a legal professional to let them know, what they're allowed to do, what their rights look like, setting them up with the ride to their court case to make sure that they go there. Post-court, letting them know, how they can move on with their future, guiding them in that sense, just providing guidance towards them.
And sorry, that's all the time we have for Q&A for this team. Thank you very much. Okay, as our judges take their notes, I'll invite the next team up, and our next team will be Craft Collective.
Hi, we're Craft Collective, and we are going to be moving handicrafts from local to global. We are going to be tackling the problem of youth unemployment through supporting handicraft cooperatives. How? By empowering them with resources, investments, and access to a local and global marketplace.
Employment of women in developing countries is as low as 20%. This can be attributed to three major barriers: lack of education, lack of finances, and cultural stigma. Despite these barriers, handicraft cooperatives can employ women in those developing countries. 65% of women earn their livelihood from handicrafts, and 70% of them are youth. And this is in Pakistan. Why are cooperatives important? Well, because globally, there's about 3 million cooperatives accounting for 10% of global employment. You can see in the next 5 years, the global handicraft market is projected to almost double. Currently, the global handicraft are sold online, and 25% of them are sold online, and their share will continue to increase as we're moving into an increasingly digitally connected society.
So we went ahead and reached out to some of these handicraft cooperatives, and we reached out to 22 of them to learn more about the challenges they face, their business models, community and employee information, and also the resources they need now and in the future.
We learned from interviewing these cooperatives that they face three main challenges.
lack of investment, lack of resources, and lack of access to a global and sometimes even local marketplace. We can imagine these cooperatives as little pockets around the globe. They're fragmented, they have little to no connection with each other, and buyers have to individually search them up to buy from them. We are going to help cooperatives scale. We're creating a network where they can not only share knowledge and resources with each other, but where buyers from all over the world can access and buy from any cooperative in our network.
By connecting cooperatives with a global customer and resource pool, we will enable those cooperatives to grow and support more women in need while meeting the needs of investment, knowledge, resources, and access to an international marketplace.
Here you can see a mock-up of our platform. On one side, we have the marketplace, where buyers can buy handicrafts directly from the cooperatives. Shipping will be handled by the cooperatives themselves, if possible. If not, we'll assist them by forming partnerships with local shipping companies. On the other side, we'll have a resource sharing side, where we will have materials that are identified by these cooperatives as the resources that they most often lack. These include resource materials, workshop training, applying for mentorship and investment, and the ability to connect to cooperatives similar to them.
The journey of our revenue model begins with our customers. These are customers who are looking to buy handicrafts from anywhere around the world. Revenue from our sales move onto our platform, where we take a cut, and the rest of the revenue is distributed back to these cooperatives. Any surplus we have will be reinvested for company growth, and will be helping to ensure that cooperatives continue to create and ship their handicrafts. Also, we'll be coaching them on making sure they know how to use their profits to continue to expand their operations. Finally, we will also be using their growth, revenue, and number of women employed as our metrics to measure our impact.
So how are we going to employ 10,000 women? By partnering with the largest players first. Cooperatives with a large presence and a large following and an online presence. The cooperatives that we reached out to fit this profile, and they've already shown interest in joining our platform, either to access the resources or the marketplace. They're also willing to share select resources in return. We will then leverage these connections to move on to cooperatives without an online presence or internet access at all. We're finally identifying high potential women who hope to start their own cooperatives.
So why our team? We're a team of 3 diverse university students with strong technical and business backgrounds. Further, we're all really passionate and have experience with working with communities from developing countries. So what are we going to be asking from you? With your financial support and moving on to the next round of Hult, we will be able to increase our partnerships, conduct more in-person interviews, and be able to work on and launch our soft launch for our platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Craft Collective. Judges, who would like to begin? Catherine.
So I have a question just around your target market. So are you looking, in terms of the types of clients you're looking to connect these cooperatives with, are you focused on individual consumers, or have you considered looking at building linkages with larger companies that might be interested in stocking these types of handicrafts? So I'm just curious what your ideal market is.
We're going to start with the buyer to consumer model, with specifically focusing on buyers who do want authentic international handicrafts, but we have also considered a buyer to buyer model, and we'll decide on that based on further talks with the cooperatives that we're working with and what works best for them. But currently the plan is buyer to consumer.
Do you have a sense of other folks in the space who are doing anything similar? Have you done an analysis of what? Yeah.
So the 22 cooperatives we talked about could also technically be our competitors in a way, because they're also dealing in the same space. But the fact is that they either cater specifically to a region, so they either get handicraft from all over the world but only sell them in Canada or the States, or they either ship internationally but only regions from one area, such as India. Again, we've interviewed several of these, and they're, again, different types as well. So they are looking to sell on an online platform. And then there's nothing that really does sell to both international to international at the moment.
We're aware of those incumbents like Amazon, Etsy, those handicraft markets that already existed. I think what separates us is that we actually provide training resources, and we care about those cooperatives, right?
How do you have a sense of building scale? Because you don't seem like you have anything to start with, except you're going to try and launch a platform. But how do you think your platform is actually going to gain some momentum?
In terms of the cooperatives that we link to or the buyers?
Both sides, but especially buyers.
I'll address the cooperative side. We're going to start with the cooperatives who do have some online presence, as I mentioned, and then move on to other cooperatives by leveraging those connections, eventually going to encourage the growth and creation of new cooperatives. That's how the cooperatives will grow. For the buyers, it will be through united marketing and branding efforts, and we'll focus especially on buyers who do, again, want authentic handicrafts directly from international markets and who want to support the growth of rural women.
We have time for a couple more questions if there are any.
So just one other question on the market side. So I know you're looking at targeting, having this as kind of a global offering, but I'm curious in your research, have you seen any trends in terms of where most of the market opportunities are? So is it European markets, North American markets? Are there, where do you see kind of the most market potential, or who are cooperatives currently selling to, the ones you've spoken to?
Yeah. Currently, the cooperatives have limited markets. So, for example, a couple that we talked to that are based out of India, they only sell to the States, something like that, because that's where their most connections are. They maybe have an office in that country. And then, yeah, that's the kind of research that's on the table so far. So we're looking to create research and create opportunity to sell internationally.
From our research, we also found that, again, to Fala's answer, a lot of it's found in the West, also because that's where a lot of the consumers are a bit more aware of trying to support a lot of local businesses. And we have found in our research that there are a lot of millennials actually looking for these kind of handicrafts, and they're like, where can we find these? And then there's only so much they can find online from an international perspective.
Okay, that's all the time we have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next team to pitch will be Grid It.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are Grid It. I would like to introduce you to Mundar, a small rural village in South Kalimantan, Indonesia. Due to its remote location, Mundar, like other villages in Indonesia, has two large problems. Indonesia has the highest rate of youth unemployment in Asia at a staggering 15.64%. This means that 1 in 6 youth does not have a job. Additionally, much of the work that is done is in the informal labor market, like agriculture, leading to inconsistent hours and unreliable income. The youth in these communities have limited opportunities and underutilized skills. The second problem that communities like Mundar face is lack of energy. There are 13,000 communities in Indonesia without electricity. This is more than double the rural population of Canada alone. Providing power to these communities would improve education and healthcare. Additionally, energy can provide opportunities for employment for people within that community. Although there are many organizations that are attempting to solve these two problems individually, we saw an opportunity to use them to solve each other. And Sebastian's going to tell you how we're going to do it.
Thank you, Aislinn. We will identify isolated communities like Mundar in the need of electricity. Youth will be then recruited, trained, and employed by us in the construction and maintenance of energy plants. Then we will appropriately build the communities in exchange for the energy consumption. This is Grid It's main source of revenue. After the construction of the plant is finished, the youth in charge of construction will be given the choice to either continue to maintain the plant or go to different communities to continue with the cycle. One efficient way we have found to provide energy to these communities, given their available resources, is methane coming from organic waste. I will show you the process and the tasks associated with it. The process begins with fermentation. We take organic waste and then it's transported into a biodigester tank, which is constructed by us. There, it ferments into methane and nitrogen. The second part of it, it's the electricity generation. Here, the methane previously obtained will be used in two different ways. First, it can be used as natural gas, or it can be transformed into electricity according to the market needs. Nitrogen-rich waste can be used as a fertilizer. All of these products can be commercialized in order for us to obtain revenue. This technology is easy enough for non-professional people to operate and maintain efficiently. For instance, this biogas plant in South India provides electricity for 60 families. Now, you know the tasks that we will be assigning to these people, but how will we create meaningful jobs? Well, besides giving the youth the opportunity to solve important problems in their community, we will employ them in the construction, operation and billing for the electricity, waste management to take into our biodigester tanks, and after the construction is finished, they will be tasked with sales and recruitment into other villages to continue with our growth model, which Sahesh will now explain.
Thank you, Sebastian. So each biogas plant requires an initial investment of $13,500. The monthly revenue that we can generate from each plant is roughly $1,250. 50% of this will go towards covering overhead expenses for the community's plant. So with an initial investment of $100,000 and a monthly recurring investment of $600, what can we achieve? With this money, we will be able to electrify 7 villages and employ 48 youth in the first year. From there, we will grow exponentially, and in 5 years, we will be able to electrify 114 villages and employ 820 youth. Sustaining this growth, we will be able to employ 10,000 youth in 9 years. We believe we are the right team for this job. We're 4 embed students from different educational backgrounds in different countries. We each have various experiences running our own startup companies, and our team synergy is vital to our team's success. But most importantly, we enjoy working with each other. Here at Grid, our mission is to empower youth in isolated communities by providing meaningful work from providing affordable and sustainable energy. Once our model proves successful in Indonesia, we will look to the African market to provide energy and employment to the 600 million people in Africa who do not have electricity. We are Team Gridded, and we are employing youth with energy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gridded. Joe will begin our Q&A.
I actually just read yesterday a paper of 2 UOW graduates doing rural energy kind of production using a similar kind of model. But in that paper, the diffusion rate of this kind of technology can be as long as 20 to 25 years. It's a really slow burn at the beginning, even though it's methane. You're fermenting it. So you're going to have to deal with the reality of the uptake being maybe slower than what you think. How are you going to deal with that?
Yes, when we first started with this idea, we were focusing only on biogas, which obtains methane only from the fermentation of manure and other kinds of waste. Now, after we talked to a team here in Waterloo, maybe it was the same team probably, we have shifted from only biogas to biogas and biomass. That's why we're using methane from organic waste in total, because we are now going to be generating methane not only from organic waste, but any kind of waste, as they do in landfills right here in Canada, actually. So that improves the technology usefulness, I think.
Okay.
So I just have a question around on the customer side, because you're targeting as your final customers people that are living in rural communities that may not have access to a lot of funds. Some may be, conducting subsistence agriculture. So I'm curious if you could just speak a little bit more about the research on the market side and the ability of your customers to be able to pay for this service.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we actually have done a proper financial analysis regarding the numbers I showed you. So the United Nations has already done a study specifically in Indonesia, and they have shown that the willingness to pay for these youths, they are willing to pay up to 25 cents for a megajoule. And then each community requires 500 kilowatt hours, and we've run the numbers and we've included how much they're willing to pay. And even if we charge them 2 cents per megajoule, the numbers I showed you, we will be affordable. And the study also shows that the youth right now are actually paying for other means like generators and other things, and are paying higher than 0.28 cents per megajoule. So we think we'll be able to provide it at a much cheaper cost.
Can you talk a little bit about your connections on the ground in community in Indonesia and why you chose Indonesia?
So as to why we chose Indonesia, that also ties into the fact that there's a lot of, so the United Nations and NGOs like NGOs like SNV specifically, they've done a lot of research into Indonesia regarding specifically what we're trying to get into. So because we were able to access all that financial information and all the on-ground research, we felt that Indonesia is the best way for us to start, because we can already run the numbers, figure out our model before actually going on the ground. For your first question, this specific NGO, SNV, we've already reached out to them. They show interest. They're doing similar projects with energy, like solar panels, wind energy, and biogas as well. And they're currently looking for partners to work with, because they are an NGO. They need funds there, and they're looking for partners to work with. And we believe that we will be able to work effectively with them.
We have time for one more question if there are. If not, okay, Joe.
I'll take another stab at the diffusion question. I think one answer is the technology, but the other answer is, or the other thing that you need to focus on is similar to the idea of like, how are you going to do it on the ground? And that's, I know my friends in India, the hardest problem has been to work their way on the ground to get the actual projects working. There's so many barriers that you're going to face.
Yes, so actually in India, there have been several successful cases of biogas use, as you can see in the slide. People are getting used to using this kind of energy, not only for electricity, but also for cooking, so using the natural gas itself for stoves. And logistics for handling the waste and every waste to come into our plant will be on our behalf. That's part of the costs that we have included in the operation of the plant. And it will actually be useful to employ even more people in the community.
Great, that's all the time we have. Thank you,
Thank you.
Gridit. Okay, last but not least, we have our final team to pitch tonight, and that is Team Hatch.
Okay. Hello, my name is Carolina, and this is my team, Heva, Tatum, and Hamid. And today we are cracking the unemployment for refugees and internally displaced people. There are two sides to this story. So let's begin with Maria and Santiago. Maria used to work daily at her farm in Colombia, where she lived happily with her family. Since she worked from a young age, she had little formal education. But one day, due to the violence, she and her whole village were forced to evacuate the area and move to the big city. Now, Maria is considered an internally displaced person. On the other hand, we have Santiago. Santiago used to be an educated IT professional in Venezuela before he had to leave his country due to political issues. Santiago is now a Venezuelan refugee in Colombia. Although they come from different places, they have something in common. They are actively seeking for employment and they cannot find it due to the lack of training, discrimination, and a disconnect between the employers and these communities.
But this problem is bigger than just Maria and Santiago. In Colombia, there are over 7 million internally displaced people, of which 58% are youth. There are over 1 million refugees, and there's a 20% unemployment rate in this community. As these numbers continue to grow, so does the youth unemployment crisis in Colombia. But the problem doesn't end just there. The second part of our story revolves around small and medium enterprises that spend a significant amount of money on hiring and retaining new employees. In Colombia, there is a 74% employee turnover rate due to the lack of incentives for individuals to remain in an organization, even though small and medium enterprises spend up to 100% of an annual salary's worth in hiring and training new employees. On one hand, we have marginalized communities like IDPs and refugees that are unemployed. And on the other, we have SMEs that have limited access to talented individuals that are motivated to remain in the organization. This is where Hatch comes in.
Our solution is a hands-on training tool using our platform that has been designed in partnerships with business organizations and NGOs. We screen for refugees who have at least a grade 10 education. Then we train and hire the refugees to become Hatch employees. Through our research, we have found that refugees are typically educated and have various skills that we can leverage. So once the refugee becomes a Hatch employee, we then connect them to IDPs through our Training on Wheels program. Once the IDP is trained, then we connect them to our business customers. Why our business customers would want to hire an IDP is because it's a decrease in turnover rate, decrease in time spent training, and also they qualify for a tax credit in Colombia. Here's an example of our Training on Wheels program. We understand not everyone has access to the internet, let alone a computer. Therefore, all necessary equipment can be found there.
Looking at the impact that Hatch is making, we're targeting 3 different groups. On one hand, we have IDPs and refugees that will gain employment through our platform. And on the other hand, we have these SMEs that will benefit from us by reducing the costs associated to turnover rates. When we look at our revenue model, we are going by a pay-for-performance model. In this model, we will first start by establishing some key performance indicators with the business partners and also agreeing on a particular percentage. Following that, we will work towards achieving those KPIs, and once they have been achieved, we will then be paid by those business partners. Now the question is, why would we use this model? It is very essential for a new company or business like ours to penetrate into the market. So we need to develop that trust and credibility. And this model allows us to essentially communicate that we are invested in making sure that the KPIs are actually achieved. What's next? Well, we will be conducting some ground research in order to develop the partners and the business partners as well as the NGOs. And after that, we will focus on developing the platform. By the 3rd quarter of 2019, we aim towards launching our first Training on Wheels scenario. As a team, we are all current MBET students coming from diverse backgrounds. Some of us even have hands-on experience working with IDPs and refugees. And I think that makes us more susceptible to the sensitivity of the issue.
We are Hatch, and we believe that leaving home does not mean being left behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Hatch. To begin our Q&A, we'll let Catherine.
So I have 2 questions. Sorry, I think we're working again. So one question was just around in terms of, so in a number of countries for refugees, there are restrictions around their ability to work, to get work permits. So I'm just curious in Colombia if that's a concern or that's going to be a restriction. So that's one question. And then the other question was around this pay for performance model. And if you've done if you had any initial conversations with SMEs to assess their willingness to pay for this type of a service.
Okay, so in terms of, what was the first question again? Oh, yeah, the work permit. So the Ministry of Work in Colombia is actually assigning them work permits so they can work. So that's the first question. And the second question was? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I actually I am from Colombia, and I have a small enterprise there that provides consulting services for SMEs, and I know their situation, and I haven't talked about this specific topic with them, but I know they have this specific problem with finding skilled people that could perform what they really need them to perform.
I would assume that skills is not the only kind of pain point for these folks. How would you address other pain points for them in addition to just making sure that they're trained?
So do you mean like soft skills?
No, I mean, so besides skills in general, so in going from being unemployed to employed, if you're a refugee or if you're an internally displaced person, it's not, I would assume, just about skills. I would assume that there's other things that would get in your way. So yeah, I don't know if how you'd address some
Like
of those
barriers,
other factors, other
supports,
barriers,
yeah.
yeah.
Yep. So.
Well, yeah, that's a really good question, and there's for sure some barriers that are associated to these entering into the market, and that's where the more research is actually needed on our part as well. We know from the research that we have done till now that there are these SMEs that are looking towards to finding that labor that they need, but they're not getting access to it. So these marginalized communities, and adding on to the fact that they are being incentivized by the government to get a tax credit, actually gives them an opportunity to come forward and do that.
I'm wondering if your project is really recreating, say, the Employment Ontario network in Ontario, which is kind of a way of helping the labor market work its way through. So an unemployed person goes to a place like a resource center and then gets supports and sometimes training and then finds their way into work. Is that kind of what you're describing, more something closer to fixing the labor market rather than changing it?
So it's a little similar, but the main part of our business model is that we will be partnering with customers that have a position that needs to be filled, and they have certain requirements of skills that need to be filled. And then once we have those contracts, then we will go out and then train the IDPs based off of those. So there's we have an ensurement of a job waiting for them once they're skilled. So we take care of the training part of that.
And that's all the time we have for Q&A. Thank you. Okay, thank you to all our teams who have pitched. Let's give all teams who pitched tonight a big round of applause. Okay, thank you everyone for your time, your patience, your energy tonight. Our judges were very efficient. I'm very impressed. I didn't even have to check in once on them. So welcome back. Before we have our final announcement from our judges, I'd like to, and after the final announcement, what will happen is teams will come up and be congratulated, and then I will ask you to sit tight just for my final vote of thanks. That's what will happen for the next little while. Just so we all are clear. Okay, great. So before the judges announce tonight's winners, I'd like to invite Mark Weber, director of the Conrad School of Entrepreneurship and Business and a huge supporter of Hult initiatives, to share a few words.
Thank you very much, everyone. I will keep this brief because I know some of you have some information you'd like to glean from the next few minutes. I want to start by saying thank you all for being here. One of our distinguished judges this evening runs an organization called Apathy is Boring, and you guys have put the proof to that. Apathy is boring. You know what's really exciting? Passionate, committed people who have skills and abilities and an eagerness to make the world a better place. You should all be very, very proud of yourselves. God knows I am. Please give yourself a round of applause. Rupa said that I'm a big supporter of the Hult Prize, and that is an incredible understatement. I see it as a symbol of some of the best things that we try to do in the Conrad School. I see it as being an opportunity to give you opportunities, to enable you and further skill you up to make the things that you care about real in the world around you. And it is a symbolic, as I look out here, I'm proud of the students, undergraduates and graduate students who are here. I'm so proud of the community that makes judges like these possible and brings them to the fore on their time to help you guys do better. I'm proud of the faculty who are out here in force, some of us with our children. Do you know why we bring our children to an event like this? Because you guys are so damn impressive, all right? Because we want them to be inspired by what they can do next. And there are multiple children in the audience, and with good reason. And we've got people like Rupa and her team who have put together just an incredible event with the support of others. Will you please join me in thanking them? So in conclusion, let me just say this. Whether you are one of the top 3 prize-winning teams this evening or not, you should all be extraordinarily proud of what you've accomplished. You should not give up on the idea. You should make it better, because if there's one thing that education is about, it is about figuring out how to make stuff better. We are in Engineering 7, the brand new building of the best engineering faculty in one of the best innovation universities in the country. This is a temple to problem solving. And so the challenge for you in the next phase is to do the most sacred of things, which is to solve really worthy problems. And I'm thrilled by the steps you've taken. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Mark. I informed Mark maybe an hour ago that I'd like him to share a few words, and as always, he is very inspiring and did a fantastic job. Thank you, Mark. All right, so now it is time for our judges to make their announcement. So judges, I'll welcome you to come to the podium, and Peter Allen, if you don't mind joining us as well to help congratulate our winners. As the teams are announced, they'll be announced in 3rd place, 2nd place, and 1st place. Please come forward, be congratulated, take a photo, and then take your seat. Thank you. I'll pass it along to Joe. Oh, not to Joe. Sorry. I just saw it, Catherine.
Okay, so since I'm the first one up, I'll just echo that just because we were efficient in making a decision doesn't mean it wasn't a really challenging decision. We really appreciated all of your presentations and all of your efforts, and we really did feel like all of the ideas have merit and really would encourage you to continue working on those. And if you'd like to follow up with us and get some more feedback, we would definitely be really, really open to that. So I'm going to announce 3rd place, and I'll let you come up and we'll congratulate you, but we also wanted to provide a bit of feedback to each of the groups because we recognize that you're going on to the next stage and you'll have time to improve, so we just wanted to provide that as well, okay? So the 3rd place winner is Collabo.
Sorry, we can take a quick photo with him on stage. Sure. And you as well. Okay.
Judges in the middle.
Judges in
Group members in the middle. Great. Well, and as I said, we want to provide a little bit of feedback as well. So one thing that we would recommend as you're looking at finalizing this idea and continuing on is because you're targeting women as your key demographic, is really to make sure you're looking at some of the barriers that may affect women in looking at entering those industries, and just make sure that you're bringing that gender lens to the work that you're doing. I think that would be my main feedback. I think we really appreciated that you were looking at a problem and really finding a solution that's going to be longer lasting, and really looking at the market side of things. So we really appreciate that. So thank you very much. Congratulations.
All right. And I'm going to announce the 2nd place, or the 2nd place prize is Better Bail for America. Okay, so we had some feedback, so congratulations again. And our feedback for you guys was to think about a couple of things in terms of the leadership and governance of your project and kind of who's also having input in this next stage of the project. So just to think about gender and diversity and how, and bringing again that gender lens, the diversity lens, to both the leadership and the governance of your project, but also who's inputting into the project, and then also lived experience. So really making sure that you are not only collecting input from folks who've been affected by this project, but they're really meaningfully engaged in your work. So congratulations again and best of luck.
Thank you.
Couldn't get the name. Pulse Homes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, very good. Oh, yeah. Oh, photos. Okay, great. Okay, we have some feedback. The first thing is, you got some real engineering challenges ahead. You got to figure out those panels. And so how you're going to do that, you're engineers, but you also need some artisans, people who can craft those panels, and you got to figure out how to make that work. So, but a lot of people have tried this. They're thinking about it all the time. I think it's great that young people, women, are going to figure it out. That would be you should just go for it. The second thing is Tanya Talaga. She did the Massey lecture, a beautiful Indigenous woman who really has laid out the problems, especially in Northern Ontario. You need to read her two books, her Massey lecture and the one called Seven Feathers. You really need to understand the Aboriginal story, especially in Northern Ontario. Go for it. Congratulations.
Great. So thank you. A round of applause to all of our teams once again for a fantastic evening. Okay, now for the vote of thanks that I promised. Firstly, we'd really like to thank, from the bottom of our hearts, our judges tonight, Joe Mancini, Ilona Doherty, and Catherine Walker. Thank you so much for your insight, your time, your fantastic questions, and feedback for our teams. So Lily, if you can... Thank you very much to our judges. Okay, so I'll try and make this as quick as possible, but there are several people I'd like to thank, without whom events like this are not possible. To begin, members of what we call the SDG here at Waterloo, not the Sustainable Development Goals, although that's, let's be honest, that's like the real bigger SDG, but hey, it stands for Social Disruptors Group. And so members including Sean Gioby this year, who spoke at our kickoff, Brock Dickinson, who's helped us with a few events in environment, Paul Heidelbrecht, who's here today from the Center for Peace Advancement, Tanya Delmato at Greenhouse, Netta, who's here at Conrad. You have all been a great network for our Hult events. Thank you so much for your support and involvement. There are a range of profs. Oh, sorry. There are also a range of profs, mentors from industry and on campus, and our judges throughout semis and tonight's finals. Thank you to that group as well. This university really is a place where we go beyond ideas, I feel, and it's thanks to collective collaborations like the ones we have across so many departments and people that this is possible. To all of my colleagues at Conrad, thank you so much for the support and space to continue building Conrad's very unique offering in social entrepreneurship. Having so many of you present at our kickoff, there was, maybe 90% of Conrad faculty were here at our kickoff, which was fantastic. And here tonight with your children, as Mark pointed out, I was most excited about having some kids here tonight. And as mentors and judges at semis, it is so special and very much appreciated. To our marketing team and staff, specifically here at Conrad, Nina, Pamela, and Jason, I believe you're all still here. Pamela, Jason, I don't see you. Oh, sorry. Okay, it's getting late for me, I guess. And Nina, who I don't think is here just now, but she was here earlier. Thank you for your support and dedication to the details that make all the difference, including today, Pamela combing through every single slide to make sure that the formatting was working for our teams. To Emily Pete, who I don't believe is here tonight, for her extra coaching of our finalist teams. We're very grateful to her as well. To our student volunteers who help in the background through our Hult events, thank you so much. Just a couple more. So to Lily Sui, who's our campus director this year's events would not have run so well without your sense of efficiency, your hustle, your enthusiasm, and your input. Both as a successful participant last year, so Lily was on the final stage actually in Quito, Ecuador, and as well this year, of course, as a driver of all of our events. Thank you so much. Yeah, let's give her a round. Last and definitely not least, to all of our teams, all of you present today and beyond, to each of you who have taken this on outside of and way beyond the classroom, I have learned that your generation really is unstoppable, okay, when you, I can do this, once you set your mind on something. The future you are designing and building is bright, and I am so grateful to be a small part of this process. No matter where you land, we hope you use your exceptional talents and privilege to do as much good as you can. Okay, that's it. Thank you all so much for your time, attention, and participation. Thanks. Please stay in touch via our social media channels. We'll keep you informed of what's happening with all of our teams. Get home safely, and we'll be in touch. Thank you.